back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And with Scream 6 closing in upon us, I figure, what the hell, let's go back to the late 90s for another slasher film. But before we do that, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here, great, would appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about 1998's Urban Legend. This movie came out September 25th of 1998. It's an hour and 40 minutes long. It's rated R, had a budget of $14 million, and upon release it made 38 in America and 72 worldwide. I actually got to see this opening weekend with a girl I was dating at the time. And this movie was directed by Jamie Blanks. We just talked about him a few weeks ago with the movie Valentine. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody that tuned in for that live stream with me and Dale_A from the Bat and Spider podcast. This was his first major theatrical film. He was coming from Australia. And as I said in my Valentine review, he actually wanted to direct, I know he did last summer, which came out in 97. He filmed a mock trailer for that movie. And actually, if you see scenes from the mock trailer, which they do show in the documentary on that special edition Blu-ray from Scream Factory, they actually show some of the trailer. And actually, some of the trailer, the shots and the scenes are in I Know You Did Last Summer. It's amazing. But he wanted that job. He didn't get that job, but they gave him this job. And we'll talk about that. Oh, and cast-wise, we got Alicia Witt as Natalie. We got Jared Leto as Paul. He is a newspaper reporter for the college newspaper. Rebecca Gayheart plays Brenda in this film. Michael Rosenbaum plays Parker. He is in charge of this frat house. And his girlfriend is played by Tara Reid. She plays Sasha. We got Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek fame at this time playing Damon. He's not in it long, but it's cool to see Joshua Jackson in this film, especially I was a Dawson's Creek fan back then. Loretta Devine plays Reese. She is campus security. And then we got some horror royalty in this film. We got the great Robert Englund as Professor Wexler. We got Daniel Harris playing goth girl Tosh, who is Natalie's roommate. And the great Brad Dourif plays a gas station attendant right at the beginning of the film, which we're going to get in right now. That's how this movie opens. With Michelle, we find out her name later, driving down this dark road at night. She happens to realize that she's running out of gas. It's pouring down rain. She pulls into this not totally run-down gas station, but dilapidated gas station. She honks her horn. Brad Dourif appears. And he is a major stutter, but she gives him her credit card and says, fill up the tank. He glances in the back, puts the gas hose into the gas tank and goes inside, comes back out, asks her to please come inside. The credit card company wants to speak with her. And she goes inside and he tries to get out what it is he wants to tell her. She is assuming that he's attacking her. She maces him, breaks the window, escapes, gets in her car, and drives off down the road as he stands up and shouts, someone's in the back seat. And as she's going, she looks up in the rearview mirror and sees somebody in the back holding an axe. We see the axe swing, crashes through the window with blood all over it, and we cut to our next scene, our introduction to Natalie and the rest of our story. The beginning of this movie, when I first saw this, I still think it's a really effective opening scene to set the tone for the rest of the film. It's very well shot by Jamie Blanks. I love his use throughout this film of overhead shots, and he utilizes them right in the beginning of this film, a few times in the beginning of this film. I think Brad Dourif's great as the unfortunately, very severely stuttering gas station attendant, and I like the whole opening here. I mean, a little bit of it doesn't make sense. We'll get into that later, but I do like how it sets the tone for the rest of the film. We're introduced to Natalie, her group of friends. She's best friends with Brenda, Parker, Sasha, Damon. So we're introduced to all of our core group here, and pretty soon people start getting killed off using Urban Legend, hence the name. Now, where Scream was very meta with knowing about horror films and talking about horror films and the cliches, this one is meta in terms of urban legends. And they even show them going to class, Robert Englund's class, and they're talking about urban legends. And throughout the film, people keep getting killed by urban legends leading up to our finale. And obviously we get red herring thrown at us, which was big back then. I mean, Scream came out in 96, Scream 2 came out in 97, I Know It Did Last Summer came out in 97, this came out in 98. We had Scream 3 in 2000. The sequel to this, which I'm going to review this week, Urban Legend Final Cut, came out in 2000 as well. Towards the end of the film, we find out that the killer is Brenda, which leads us to question some of the things that happened before this, which we'll talk about in a second. And we find out when Brenda's revealed to be the killer that her whole reason for doing this is revenge on Natalie and Michelle because they did this prank on her fiance at the time, and he got in an accident and got killed, and they got off. And this was her way of taking revenge on them and Natalie's friends, even though her friends really had nothing to do with it. But she lays it all out at the end after her visual aid. So they explain it all. But that's why she's doing what she's doing. Paul comes to Natalie's rescue, and they kill Brenda, I think they do. And then there's one final scare where Brenda's hiding in the back of the car with the axe and attacks him one last time. And Paul crashes his Jeep into the side of the bridge. She goes flying out the window into the river, and we think that's the end, but we get one last stinger of this other college with this group of friends sitting around, and they're talking about this story, and we see Brenda under a different name say, let me tell you how it really went, and that's the end of the film. And that's urban legend. What to like about this film? I think this is extremely well shot by Jamie Blanks. I love his use of overhead shots. He uses them throughout the film, off and on. And I like his shot selection. I like it's not too quick cut. I like that. It's very well lit. I like the score here. I like the actors here. I think this is pretty well acted here. It's not overly gory. Jamie Blank said he didn't want to rely on gore, more suspense here. That's why you don't see a lot. You see blood, but it's not a bloodbath by any stretch of the imagination. Again, the cast I think is really good here. A lot of up and coming cast here. Some were hot at the time, like Joshua Jackson, even though he gets killed fairly quickly. I like their use of urban legends in this film. It's very novel. I mean, we've seen movies built off of this before. When a Stranger Calls is the most famous one, where the calls, well, even Black Christmas did it first, but the whole movie is built around an urban legend and When a Stranger Calls, pretty much. At the beginning of the film with Carol Kane, that awesome first part of that movie, which is the best part of the whole movie, with the killer actually upstairs in the house, already killed the children, but calling her from inside the house. They reference it here during Wexler's class, Robert Englund talking about that right in the beginning of his class. And they go on some other ones like the Pop Rocks and Soda. They talk about that, which they kind of recreate with Parker and the old woman who drives her dog in the microwave, which is gets Parker to get sick and go into the bathroom because the killer does put his dog in the microwave and he finds it. The way Damon gets killed, with you hear the scraping on the rooftop and he's hanging from a tree. All those, it actually comes off really cool. They all look visually cool here. I've always enjoyed this film. And when I left the theater, when I saw it opening night, I actually did check the backseat of my car before I got in. I actually checked it for a little while after I saw this film. Now, it's not perfect. Once you find out that Brenda, in a way Brenda reveals herself, with the visual aid, she goes, why, thank God I have a visual aid. It's like what she's been holding on to this slideshow and set up this elaborate setup in this old dormitory where all these people got killed in the past that the kids talk about earlier in the film. It comes off kind of cheesy. Now, Rebecca Gayheart does give a good psycho performance at the end, and Reese gets involved and she gets shot by, Brenda. And they bring Reese back in the sequel, which we'll talk about in a few days. But that's kind of silly, some of that stuff. And then also thinking back, Brenda weighs, 90 to 100 pounds. How did she lift Damon up on top of the car for him to be scraping his feet? Some of it, if you think about it, the logistics of it, how she was able to accomplish this with nobody seeing it, is kind of far-fetched once we get to the end and we find out who it is. Even in the car in the beginning, when she kills Michelle with the axe, the car is going pretty quick. How did she stop the car without it hitting a tree? So she's not hurt. These are all questions if you think about it a little too hard, a little too much, it starts to fall apart under its own weight. But overall, I've always enjoyed this. I think it's a very solid late 90s slasher film. It's always clicked with me, and it's great seeing Robert Englund here, Daniel Harris, and Brad Dourif showing up. I mean, it gives it a little bit of, warm, fuzzy feelings because they're all horror royalty at that point, even at that point back in 98. But overall, I still enjoy this film. Yes, there's plot holes. There's some things that are kind of silly. But if I'm having such a good time, I could leave it go. If I wasn't having such a good time, I would rip it a new a-hole. But fortunately for the film, I was in its grips and I was having a good time with it. So I could forgive some of the silly stuff that happens throughout the film. And thinking back on it, you kind of just let it go and just go along for the ride. Now, there's a couple callbacks. Obviously, when Natalie and Damon get in the car to go off to have their conversation, when he starts the car up, it's playing I Don't Want to Wait from Dawson's Creek. The beginning song over the credits for Dawson's Creek was that song. And Jamie Blanks, even on set, called called Joshua Jackson Pacey. It was just kind of his little joke and little jab at him. They were having a good time. This was shot up in Toronto, Canada. It says during the movie it takes place in Melbourne, New Hampshire. It was a shout out to Jamie Blank's hometown of Melbourne, Australia. Overall, I've always enjoyed this film. This is one of those films that I think obviously screams the big one in the late 90s for bringing slashers back. This one was popular at the time. The sequel didn't do quite as well. We'll talk about it in a few days. But this is a solid, fun time at the movies with a game cast, a director that's doing pretty good work for his first theatrical film. It has a kick-ass score by Christopher Young. I really like the score a lot. At the end of the day, I would give this an 8 out of 10. It's a very solid late 90s slasher film. It's not perfect. I'm not selling it as perfect. But you can have a really good time with it. And I love the premise of somebody using urban legends to take out these kids. And at the end of the day, 8 out of 10 is where I stand on this one. Have you ever seen this one? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. That special edition Blu-ray is still available on Amazon if you're interested in it. It has a great documentary that goes through every aspect of the filmmaking. I will be back soon with a review for Urban Legends Final Cut. But until next time, bye.